We're just getting some breaking news here about the war. The president has just issued a truth social from the White House saying this: based on conversations with Prime Minister Sharif and Field Marshal Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran, agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. On behalf of the United States of America as president and also representing the countries of the Middle East, it is an honor to have this long-term problem close to resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Again, just seconds ago, before the deadline for attacks on Iran tonight, and it seems like a deal is in the making. There had been talk, Mark, all day long about maybe this was happening. How do you see this, and how does it play politically here at home?
Well, I think the president had to do it if he could get terms that include an unconditional opening of the strait, which
because
it sounds
the markets
like he's gotten.
Had to look at that and say
he has to do it because, look, people are, in my latest poll, 51% support the war, 54% said it was justified, but 57% said if he could get a good deal, he should take it. So I think it's a risky 2-week period because it enables them to regroup. But on the other hand, the president, if he thinks he has a real opportunity to come out with a negotiated victory, then I think he had to do it.
A lot of people got, really energized about some of the things he posted about, annihilation, civilization. But now he's coming with this deal, Kellyanne. How do you see this big picture?
It's the 11th straight year of them in high dudgeon about everything he writes and says. He said he doesn't care about his critics, but he does care about getting peace and a just cause here. He does care about oil flowing again. If he gets a deal, the ultimate deal maker, part of how he wins these elections, Brett, then that will matter to people. There's one group that he's not mentioning at all. They're called Europe and NATO. It's really fascinating what's happened there in a short amount of time. You even have Vladimir Zelensky running around in these Gulf state countries saying, I'm not getting weapons, I'm giving them to you and giving you our intelligence for the last couple of years in this war with Russia. It's really fascinating what's happened there in short order. NATO's coming to the White House tomorrow. I think Mark Rutte, the Secretary General himself, has forged a good relationship with Trump, but the NATO countries have not, and he's not even mentioning them as part of this deal. This is all about the countries around Iran. Look, this is what we expect from presidents. You're not going to get a good deal unless you pressure, and they think that you're serious. And the same country that sent 155 aircraft in to rescue one of our airmen, if not two, just this past weekend, is a country that is going to do what it takes to keep everyone safe and to push back on the largest state sponsor of terror, but also to tell the people who are relying on the Strait of Hormuz, like Europe, for its energy, we need you to help as well.
I mean, we just did this breakdown of how much flows through that strait. It's remarkable. Our oil does not as much, but fertilizer does. It's a big part of the world economy.
Well, it's a big part of the world economy, but the U.S. could sustain a 60 or 90-day war because there's about 20 million barrels a day that we consume. $50 extra, it's about $1 billion a day, a small amount relative in a $30 trillion economy. So we could have withstood it, but on the other hand, I think the markets are going to react very well. And I think, remember that scene from Patton, where Patton goes crazy, and his aide says, the men don't know when you're kidding or when you're not. And Patton says, it's not important for them to know, it's important for me to know. Yeah. So I think we see that today, that the president was tough, he put pressure on Iran, and it looks like they're caving.
So just to reiterate, for viewers who may just be tuning in, the president has just put out a truth social saying that there is a deal in the works with Iran, a 10-point plan, negotiating a settlement that includes the immediate opening of the Strait of Hormuz. We don't know what the other 10 points include, but if it matches previous negotiations, that includes nuclear material, it includes a missile program that would not continue. and we don't know what it means for the neighbors. But this has to be a real breath of sigh of relief
It certainly
for
is,
Gulf
and I
Arab
think
allies,
that's
especially.
right. And the president said this will be a 4 to 6 week war. We're still within that zone. He also last week reminded us all, Brett, Vietnam 19 years, Iraq War 7 or 8, World War II and Korea 3 years apiece. 4 to 6 weeks. I know we're an impatient country with pace of change and pace of conclusion these days, but he can claim victory. And I think the negotiated 10-point settlement, whatever it ends up looking like, this is news, as you say, starting with the Strait of Hormuz just shows everybody is serious here. And I think that this will be part of his security and affordability agenda in ways that are very important.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.